Tom Clark's Main Event is a Boink Studios production. Follow us on Twitter at Boink Studios and check out our Facebook page where you can see all of our projects, past, present, and future. And now, on with the show.
This is Daddy's show. Step off.
Hey, what is up? Welcome to the program, folks. Thank you for tuning in. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Tom Clark, and you are listening to Tom Clark's Main Event. This is episode number 67 of the podcast, and if you're joining us today for the very first time, we will bid you welcome. If you're coming back for a repeat visit, we say, hey, thanks for checking back in with us. And to all those involved, we extend to you, as always, the customary laurel and a hearty handshake. Thanks for listening. Thanks for reading. Thanks for supporting. And hey, thanks for always being there, Doc. Number 67. I'm recording this on the date that number 66 was released, which was exactly 1 month ago. Because I suck. Well, you guys know how it is. Life beckons, you get busy doing other things, stuff comes up. A lot has happened since I've talked to you last. Christmas has come and gone. So has the new year. And of course, episode number 66 was our most downloaded to date. It was the Randy Orton interview. Thanks again very much to Randy and to WWE for making that happen. It was a blast to do, and hopefully we can keep bringing you some cool stuff like that. As I said before, Christmas and New Year's have already come and gone, so Merry Christmas, a belated Merry Christmas, and a belated Happy New Year to you. Hope you and yours had a great one. I did. Everything was cool in the House of Clark. Had a great holiday season. I'm not going to say I'm glad it's over, because there's too many Grinches out there, far too many Grinches out there, and that's all they ever do is talk about their, oh, I can't wait till it's over. And when it was over, you know how many of those people were like, oh, thank God it's over. Like that, I couldn't wait for it to be over. How can people even think like that? Do you know what I mean? Like, why would people even talk like that? Like, oh, I can't wait for Christmas to just get here so I can get over with. Dude, really? Like, get over yourself, man. I hate that kind of sentiment. People are just like, well, like I said, Grinches. It's such a manufactured idea, the whole idea of a modern day Scrooge or whatever. I'm ranting right now. I can't help it, man. But yeah, Christmas is come and gone. New Year's is come and gone. 2016 is over with. And I will be one of the guys to say thank God, because we lost a lot of good people in 2016. One that's been hanging, pretty heavy on my mind lately has been Princess Leia herself, Miss Carrie Fisher. It was a huge blow to any of you guys out there that grew up Star Wars fans, or maybe who you didn't, but you saw episode 7 and you appreciate her and appreciate the work she put into making that character come to life. I wrote what I considered to be like a tribute to her that I published on December 27th on the Boink Studios websites. It's entitled Celebrating Carrie Fisher's Legacy as the Heart of Star Wars, in which I actually go into the fact that I think that episode 4 doesn't happen were it not for Princess Leia. Now, if you go and see Rogue One, a Star Wars story, by the way, then you will see that episode 4 doesn't happen without the team of rebels and spies that decided to go steal the plans of the Death Star. Okay, so you got me there. But, that's really not where I was coming from on this. That the whole purpose for episode 4, there would have been no episode 4, as I said before, if not for Princess Leia. Huge loss to Star Wars fans, a huge loss to anyone out there who appreciates great characters and great movies and, great people. From everything I've ever read about Carrie Fisher, she's always been outspoken and, to live life on her terms. So her family's got to feel good about that. The fact that, she did it her way, and we're all saddened by her loss. My apologies for getting off on non-pro wrestling stuff. This is not Tom and Kyle's Comedy Action Hour, which we haven't recorded in, it's coming up on a year, and I'm thoroughly disgusted about that. We have had a lot of stops and starts, a lot of false starts, I should say, to be honest with you, over the past several months. We just could not seem to come together at the right time. I'm I'm in one part of North Carolina, he's in another, and we're about 2 hours separating us, and it's just hard. Even on a distance with technology being what it is, it's still hard. Just trying to coordinate each other's schedule. So my apologies on that. Stay tuned. We are going to get back on board and get back on track at some point, I promise you. Hey, how about we talk about wrestling? Sound good to you? Sounds good to me, actually. I am currently at my desk here in Boink Studios, and I am watching Starrcade 85 for the 957th time. I don't know if that's the correct number, but it sounded good. And I've literally seen this pay-per-view more times than I could ever count. But I like to have wrestling on when I do the podcast. I like to have stuff going on and sort of put myself in the mood for it. But let's be honest, I'm always in the mood to talk about wrestling. I'm in the mood to get choked up right now, evidently. Don't know what's happening. As I've said before in a recent podcast, I usually don't have anything to drink during a show because indigestion sets in, all kinds of other crazy, wacky sounds. Plus, it's kind of rude. So, and I guess I'll just cough. You guys are up for that, right? So that's cool. Why don't we just go ahead and get down to the bottom of this? If you've seen the title, you already know what's going down. If not, if you're blind as a bat or just haven't looked at it or whatever, how about we just go ahead and tell you what it is right now? This time, the main event is Kenny Omega and the New Japan Effect on WWE. Now, this is not a column yet. I'm not saying that it won't be a column. It may at some point. Okay? I mean, it just may be. It may be materializing at some point. I like the title, and I've got a lot of thoughts on it. For those of you who watched Wrestle Kingdom 11, you know about the main event that's taken place between Kenny Omega and Kazuchika Okada, and I've heard his first name pronounced like 4 different ways, so I'm going with that one. All due respect to Okada. But Omega versus Okada in the main event of New Japan Wrestle Kingdom 11 for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship. It was an instant classic. It was, if you've not seen it, you got to see it. And I would advise you to get the New Japan app, which yours truly is in the process of doing, because how are you going to call yourself a pro wrestling fan, let alone a pro wrestling analyst and writer, if you don't have as much exposure to everything in the business as you possibly can? And I watch New Japan as often as possible, but the app is happening now. So, yeah, got to do it. That's a must-do, must-have thing. New Japan is... Let's do a little backstory if you're not familiar. New Japan has been around for a while, and they are some of the most exciting wrestling matches and as a company that you've seen, and if you've never checked it out, you have to watch it. If you have Access TV, check out New Japan on Friday nights. Jim Ross, good old JR, is doing the commentary on that along with Josh Barnett from the world of UFC and pro wrestling. It's a very dynamic, very exciting, very hard-hitting, action-packed show. It really is. New Japan is where it's at. If you're a fan of Shinsuke Nakamura, then you know the king of strong style. That's what New Japan has, is strong style, which I've debated that on the program before, that I feel like the term strong style is sort of breaking kayfabe, which everything breaks kayfabe, so, you can choose to let that get to you or not. It's entirely up to you. I wrote a column recently about breaking kayfabe and about how I continue to grieve over it. But I can't help it, man. But if you're interested in reading that, go to Camel Clutch and check it out. It's entitled The Lasting Impact of Kayfabe's Demise in WWE. That sucker was published on, well, God, I have no idea. Here I am clicking on the column. I try to be as prepared as possible, and plus I wrote the freaking thing. You'd think I'd be ready for this, but alas, I am not. So, December 29th, how's about that? Don't say I'm not ready. Who said I'm not ready? I'm ready, shut up. So, but yeah, just the term strong style, in my opinion, denotes an obvious, ignorance of kayfabe in the world of pro wrestling, which used to define pro wrestling. Kayfabe was what held everything together. Kayfabe was like the force. if we can go back to Star Wars, dude, great analogy, by the way, but kayfabe in pro wrestling is what the Force is in the Star Wars universe. It penetrates us, it binds our world together, binds our galaxy together. That's what kayfabe is in pro wrestling. It's that it's that fictional reality. It's the suspension of disbelief. It's the fictional narrative that two guys have a problem and they're going to settle it in a wrestling ring. They're going to settle their differences, and each man is actually trying to win the match. And everything that happens within the match is in an attempt to get the pin in the end, because getting the win is the most important thing. I mean, that's essentially it. Kayfabe, in other words, is if pro wrestling were a real thing and an actual competitive sport, then that's what kayfabe basically is. So without it, you've got nothing. When you've got talents who are behind the scenes and as soon as their match is over, they go straight to Twitter and Instagram and Facebook and talking about how much they respect their opponent and all this other nonsense, and they're all posing with each other backstage, and they're going to like NBA games together and hanging out and all this other stuff. I mean, it completely destroys the reality, or it completely destroys the manufactured reality of kayfabe. And it's a widespread problem. It's not just in WWE, it's in every major promotion on the planet at this point. And we can all blame Vince McMahon for that. So thank you, Vince, for, causing wrestling to not be as fun as it used to be. That's why you ended up with all these know-it-alls like me who write and podcast and beg for your attention and for you guys to check us out and download and subscribe and read and keep us afloat and keep us in business. And I say that tongue-in-cheek, but it's the truth, man. Had they never let the cat out of the bag, and we would all just kind of sitting back guessing as to how it worked, then no one would ever really know. I mean, surely somebody would have spoke at some point, but, things change, so I'm not going to... How did I get off on this, by the way? I digress, anyway. But let's talk a little bit about what we're talking... Let's go back to New Japan. So New Japan is, as we said before, hard-hitting, action-packed, and there's a lot of things I love about New Japan. Some things I don't, but a lot of things I do love about New Japan. One is the fact that there's no closed fists. Well, there's not supposed to be, right? But the fact that they can only use forearms makes for a much more believable match. Because if in a real actual fight, if you did nothing but hit each other with closed fists, eventually you're going to break your knuckles, or especially to the skull. It's one thing to hit a guy on the cheek or to the side of the neck or something, but on the top of the head, or the side of the head, or whatever. I mean, eventually you're going to break a knuckle in the real world, right? And plus, if two guys are hitting each other with closed fists, you're eventually going to have blood. You're going to have broken hands. You're going to have concussions. You're going to have two guys who, by the way, are going to be on TV again tomorrow night or in a few days, and there's no bruising. There's no bruising. There's no lacerations. There's no evidence. Because there was no DNA, as Jim Ross likes to say. And it makes a lot of sense, because when you watch American wrestling, it's all punches. It's all working punches through the whole match. But that's not how New Japan rolls. So how do they attack? They use forearm shivers. And because they use forearms, and they use a lot of strong style, which means a lot of, maybe not getting stiffed is maybe a bit too harsh, but working snug perhaps is a better way to put it. But a lot of headlocks, a lot of takedowns, a lot of... in the matches, they get a lot more time in New Japan than they do in the States, and a lot of times. That's the truth. But a lot of those guys have cauliflowered ears because of that. Constant forearm shots to the side of the head. And again, like we said, headlocks and all this other stuff. So every guy on that New Japan roster looks like a warrior, because he is. And to really earn your stripes, if you want to really come up and not only learn your trade, but learn the business and learn how to get over, New Japan is a great place to go. We all know that Cody Rhodes is now in New Japan, by the way. He is part of the Bullet Club, and he may, in fact, become the de facto leader of the Bullet Club if Kenny Omega is indeed done with the promotion. Because just after, Omega worked Okada in the main event of Wrestle Kingdom 11, he went onto Twitter and said that he was stepping away from New Japan. And so now everyone's talking about the possibility that Kenny Omega is heading to WWE. Hence the reason for this podcast. Because I like to link one thing with another and go from there. So, what is New Japan, NJPW, if you want to call it that? What is New Japan Wrestling's immediate impact on WWE style? Well, let's go ahead and get down to it. If you don't know who Kenny Omega is, if you're not familiar with him, he is an American wrestler. Actually, Kenny might be, is he Canadian maybe? Kenny Omega might be Canadian. And see, we talked about being ready for this, and here I am not ready. Isn't that terrible? I'm going to do my homework here, and I'm going to do the legwork here so you don't have to. By the way, if you're hearing some funky noises in the background, just so you know, we are going to attempt to take a lot of those out, but we may not be able to. We had like 9 inches of snow in the past couple of days. It's been really fun here, and the wind is kicking up something fierce, actually. So just to let you know that, so our apologies if anything wacky is happening. But yes, Kenny Omega was actually born in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, and currently resides in Tokyo, Japan. But who knows what's going to happen right now, because again, stepping away from New Japan supposedly, and it could end up WWE. So what is the immediate impact? Now, this is me talking. You guys know I give you my best analysis possible. I consume as much product as I can, and I study it, and I do everything I can to give you my take on it and give you as much of a, maybe not, educated guess, but from years of writing and studying the product and understanding how the business is, how it works and how it's perceived and how it's supposed to be displayed in the first place. And I give you the absolute best I can. So this is my take, okay? The current style in WWE, and it's been the topic of a lot of podcasts, a lot of writing, a lot of fans' conversations over the past several years. I say several. Let's be fair and say the past 2 years. We've really seen an increase in this new style of WWE. The style is very physical. It's very intense. It's very fast. It's too fast because, the faster you go, the less of a chance that fans are going to have to process what they're seeing in front of them, which is never a good thing. I think we can all agree on that. No matter what kind of wrestling you're into, no matter what company you're a fan of, we can all agree on the fact that when guys go too fast, you can't keep up. I remember being in the locker room several times in the past in companies I worked for and hearing guys talking about, listen, slow down. It's the KISS principle. Keep it simple, stupid. I heard that a lot, actually. And it's the truth, because the more stuff you throw, and every guy wants to get his stuff in. You guys know that, right? It's all about getting your stuff in. And, the term spot monkeys that Matt Hardy loves. But it's true. And I mean, I'm not saying that there are a lot of spot monkeys in WWE, and I don't really use that term very often. Don't even know if I've even written that term, to be fair. I don't think I ever had, to be honest with you. But those guys who are, historically like that, then they have to get their stuff in. See, it's all about getting your stuff in. It's all about doing as much as you possibly can, cramming all your moves and your cute little flips and your somersaults and your 450s off the ring apron onto the floor and your moonsaults and your and all that stuff and your swanton bombs and everything else. And that's what it's all about. It becomes the defining aspect of what you want to do in the ring. It takes precedence over actually telling the story, because the story gets lost, man. And that's how it happens. Ring of Honor has built an entire company on that idea. Now, don't give me any hate mail. Don't anyone go nuts on me. I like Ring of Honor. I don't dislike the company. But I see more offenses of this nature in Ring of Honor than I do anywhere else. When you go too fast and you throw too much in, you slow down and sometimes eliminate any possibility of selling that you can have in the ring. And folks, I got news for you. When you stop selling, you kill the business. The lack of selling is killing the business. As much as like kayfabe has all but destroyed it, in terms of fans really appreciating and respecting it anymore, it's now become, the lack of selling is making it a joke. And that's why people flip past Raw and keep flipping, because there's nothing there to hold them there. Because, when they see a guy take a punch to the head and then they get right back up with no blood, they're not dizzy, they're nothing. Or, the night after a big pay-per-view event or WWE Network event or whatever they're calling it now, you see guys walking straight down the ramp. They're not limping. They don't care. They're not trying to sell the match from the night before. That kind of stuff really gets on my nerves, by the way. But that's in essence what we're talking about, the lack of selling. So yeah, there's a lot of offenders out there. not just in Ring of Honor, but there's some in New Japan as well. So going to New Japan and talking about the strong style and talking about the fact that it's a lot stiffer than what we see in American pro wrestling. But going back to WWE's current style, again, too fast. Is it a bit snug like New Japan? It can be, sure. You get a guy like Sami Zayn in there, and I'm sure he has no problem getting the crap kicked out of him because it's part of his character, the underdog from the underground. If you're the underdog, it basically means you're going to get your hind end handed to you every time you're in the ring, which he essentially does. And I'm not going to mention, I guess I could mention guys by name. How about this? How about I say it as respectfully as possible? I believe that the current WWE style, which is not strong style, and I'm not sure what I would call it. I don't know if anyone's actually named it. Someone needs to. Hey, maybe we will. Who knows? But the current WWE style, in my estimation, is not working, okay? Because, again, the lack of selling is prevalent. It's everywhere. It's everywhere you look in WWE, whether it's Raw or SmackDown. No matter what event you're talking about, NXT, it's the same thing. You got guys who, I'm not saying they're not good talents. I'm not saying they're not good workers and they're not putting on great matches. I'm not even suggesting that. But what I am saying to you right now is the fact that the lack of selling is killing the product, especially in WWE, and it's causing fans to get cynical about it and to turn the channel and to be upset and to debate and talk about it. It's causing guys like me to podcast about it and lose their mind about it and debate it back and forth, and it's becoming a nightmare for us. I'm not exaggerating when I'm saying any of this stuff, man. I mean, there's veterans of the business. There's guys who's maybe are past their prime, but they're in other companies or they're just recently retired or whoever it is. Legends that you respect, like Austin and other guys who sit back and say, man, you're working too fast. You're not selling enough. You're not doing. And here's my point to all of that. When you have guys like Austin and Jim Ross and Taz and other guys, talking about, and Ric Flair, obviously the man, the best, the greatest of all time. Are you serious right now? When you have these guys sitting back and they're all saying the same thing, then dude, there's a problem, okay? And if you're a guy like Sami Zayn, if you're Seth Rollins, if you're Neville, I mean, there's a lot of perpetrators of this new style. And if this is going to sound like a hate podcast, like, oh, Tom's hating on these guys. I'm not trying to hate on anyone. I'm just pointing out the fact that, for me as a wrestling fan, I mean, I grew up watching Dusty versus Rick, the Horsemen, Rock and Roll Express versus the Midnight Express, Tully, Wahoo, Arn, all these guys who, in my opinion, laid the foundation for what pro wrestling should be today. And they're the ones that paved the way, okay? Some of the best pro wrestling I ever saw, I saw when I was 5 years old, and that's the God's truth. And for me, that the territory days were the best era of the business, okay? But it frustrates me to no end when I see guys today who have prime opportunities to go down in history as some of the best talents of all time, to carve their names on that mountain, maybe not next to Flair, but have aspirations to be there one day, and again, Wahoo and Magnum TA and Nikita and some of the best storytellers you've ever seen in your life in the business, and guys who, blood, sweat, and tears every single time they were in the ring. They left it all in the ring and they told a story and they built the business, man, again, into what it is today. Dusty Rhodes, for crying out loud, the American Dream. He was there. He was there and worked with these kids a lot. And you still have this style that is just, I take 4 extremely punishing moves in a row. I pop back up, deliver 4 punishing moves in a row. He pops back up. I don't sell anything. And the next night on Raw, I'm walking around as if nothing ever happened. I mean, I got a big problem with that. And it's gotten consistently worse over the years. So that's where I'm coming from on this. When you do something in a match that is not meant to win the match, when it's not done in order to try to win the match. Again, kayfabe in full effect here, folks, or at least it used to be, that everything you do in a match is in order to actually win the match. When that cannot be said of your wrestling match, then you have screwed up, okay? Because if all you're doing is putting on a stunt show, like Sami Zayn, for example, then it becomes, I'm detached. I don't care about it anymore. And not only that, but I fear for your safety. Case in point, Kenny Omega. If I told you I followed Kenny Omega's career from day one, I would be lying. So if you have, God bless you and yours. And great, good for you, okay? So maybe you've seen things I don't see, but I've watched a lot of Kenny Omega matches, and I saw him back in New Japan before he was anybody. He was just a funny guy with funny hair, and he talked during matches out loud and kind of goofball and everything until the time that he morphed to be the leader of the Bullet Club now. And I've seen a lot of stuff in between, and I can tell you for sure this guy takes unnecessary chances. Now, will he be allowed to take those chances if and when he comes to WWE, if that is indeed his next destination? I got to be honest with you. I think he will be allowed to, because for whatever reason, this new style in Vince McMahon's company is being allowed to happen. They're going for it. They love it. I mean, they must, right? I mean, Seth Rollins, we've talked about him before on the show. Is he dangerous? Is he hurting guys? Is he responsible for Sting getting put out, for Finn Balor getting put out? I mean, one after another. He works a guy. The guy gets hurt in the match. The guy goes out. And okay, so is it Seth's fault, or is it just that the fact that this new style is a lot, it's harder hitting. It's a lot more intense. It's not a slow, methodical 250-year-old guys in the ring like an NWA or something or whatever it is. I mean, and is that what it is? Are guys like myself old-fashioned, and we need to get with the times, and we need to understand guys like Sami Zayn are the norm? And by the way, if you think I'm picking on Sami Zayn, I'm not trying to. I don't dislike Sami personally, and I've told you guys stuff like this on the show from the day I started recording Tom Clark's Main Event to right now. I'm going to repeat it again in case you missed it before. Anything I say, anytime I criticize a wrestler, anytime I criticize an announcer or a manager, whoever we're talking about, it's never meant to be, there's no malice behind it. There's no bad intentions behind me criticizing anyone in the business. There's nothing personal about it, okay? It's the fact that when I look at these guys and I see the way they carry themselves in the ring, I get scared for them, okay? Sami takes a lot of stupid risks. There was a match he was working, I can't remember if it was against Strowman or Owens, but it was recently. And forgive me for not remembering there, by the way, but he's selling the leg. He's selling the left leg, because you always work the left side, in case you guys didn't know that. Most of the time, the rule of thumb is you work the left side. So he's selling the left leg, and he's really selling it, okay? Kudos to him, by the way, for that. But he gets up, and his opponent's on the outside of the ring on the floor. And he's at the ropes right there at his opponent. Rather than just slide out of the ring and work over his opponent or maybe toss the guy back in, what does he do? He looks around for the crowd's approval and looks to the other side of the ring. So he takes this bum leg that he shouldn't even be allowed to walk on supposedly, and he runs across the ring to dive over the top rope. It didn't need to be done. It was unnecessary, and it was irrelevant to the match, which I don't even think he won. So that move was not meant to win the match. That move was meant to make you go, ooh, ah, because pro wrestling in WWE has become a stunt show now. It's Evel Knievel times 5. And and I'm not trying to pick on Sami. I'm just telling you what I see. And I see a lot of that from Sami Zayn, unfortunately. I've seen it from other guys too. I mentioned Neville earlier, and I mentioned him on a podcast in the past. And I'm sorry to get choked up about it, but it kills me, because I saw him work Owens. And Owens is on the floor on his back. Neville does a 450 off the ring apron onto the floor. Well, it wasn't a Falls Count Anywhere match, which tells me, okay, Neville's not trying to win the match. He's trying to make me go, ooh, ah. I don't care. It doesn't mean a thing to me. I see a lot of the same stuff from Kenny Omega in New Japan. And I'm going to tell you right now, if and when he does, like we said before we get to WWE, he's probably going to do the same stuff, because that company evidently is okay with it, which doesn't make any sense at all. And it makes me crazy to no end. But he does a lot of that stuff that's unnecessary. He takes a lot of risks. Go YouTube the table spot where he put Okada through the table. This didn't happen at Wrestle Kingdom 11. It happened before, okay? But he puts Okada through the table, and dude, it looked scary. It was flat out scary. He took chances in the match with Okada at Wrestle Kingdom 11 that looked scary too. The drop kick to the back of the head. You can't tell me he didn't know how high he was when he came off. Okada's a tall cat, and he hit him on the back of the head. It was scary to watch in slow motion. Okay? Now, am I saying that he's trying to hurt guys? No. Did I say Seth's trying to hurt guys? No. I'm saying that they don't realize perhaps just how dangerous, not how dangerous they are, I never said that, but how dangerous their style can be. Omega takes unnecessary chances. Having said that, the match with him and Okada at Wrestle Kingdom 11 was an instant classic. I said that earlier, and I'll stick to that. It's a match that's worth your time. It's as good, if not better, than any American match or a match in WWE that I've seen in a long time. And that's the truth. It's an instant classic, as I said before. But again, at the same time, he's taking risks. He's taking a lot of risks that he shouldn't be taking. They're unnecessary. Okay, and there's a lot of things you can do in a match that are high risk. There's a lot of things you can do in a match that is high octane, and high octane maybe is how I would describe WWE's current style. It's high octane, high intensity. You know what I mean? That's what it is. But stunt show is the best thing I come up with. But there's a lot of stuff you can do in a match that is high octane, that is high intensity, that adds to the story. Because guys, when you deviate from telling a story, when it becomes all about the spot, when it becomes all about the finish, when it becomes all about, the 450 backwards with a leg tucked behind your head like Spider-Man from a Todd McFarlane book or something, some dynamic pose that in real life would never happen. It's video game wrestling, I guess is what you could call it also. Then when you start doing that stuff, you've lost me. And dude, I've been watching this for a long time, okay? And I've seen all kinds of wrestling from all different kinds of countries and styles and talents and big and small and super heavyweight to cruiserweight to everything in between, dude. And I can tell you for sure, the moment you start doing the stunts, I'm out. That's why AAA is hard for me to watch in Mexico, because that's a lot of stunts. It's a lot of, Kip up running back and forth and bam, 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 and Bob's your uncle and bam, 3 count. Who won? I don't know. Some guy in a mask did. To me, I don't get into that. That's not pro wrestling. I mean, and Omega has been on the record as saying that pro wrestling is whatever you want it to be. It can be anything. I disagree with that. Pro wrestling shouldn't be a stunt show. Pro wrestling shouldn't be how hard can you get hit and get back up and do some stupid freaking move? Because here's what I'm going to do. I don't think that's pro wrestling. Pro wrestling is storytelling. We lose that. They lose that. You can't tell me they don't lose that. Kenny Omega wrestled this match as if his life depended on it. He wrestled this match 2 different ways. 1, as if it would be his last match in New Japan. And 2, as if it was his rehearsal or his introductory match to fans in WWE. It was his statement. It was his statement to WWE, his way of saying, listen, you're going to sign the right guy, or you signed the right guy already when you sign me, because look what I can do. Look what I bring to the table. Look who I am. Look what I did with the best in this company. And make no mistake about it, man, Okada is the top guy in New Japan. And he's going to be for years to come. We're probably talking, I don't know, another 7 to 10 years maybe this guy has. And he's phenomenal. Okada's phenomenal. And everyone's talking about Kenny Omega. And I'm not saying that he wasn't great in this match, because he was. But let's not forget about Okada. I mean, it takes 2 guys to make a great match, not just one. And Okada brought it. Okada is, for my money, and all due respect to AJ Styles, I believe Okada's best wrestler in the world. That's how I feel. Tanahashi had that title for me at one point, but I think Okada has surpassed him in terms of ring psychology, in terms of timing. And that's a big statement, because Tanahashi is phenomenal. Again, all due respect to AJ Styles. But, I believe Okada's best talent in the world right now. I believe that. Just as I believed at one point that CM Punk was. And when he said he was, I believed it, because he was. And, at any given point, there's guys who take that title and wear it with pride. I think Okada is. And the fact that Kenny not only held his own, but delivered and gave as good as he got, says a lot. And again, I believe that match in Wrestle Kingdom 11 was his audition. It was his statement to WWE and to the world. I'm the guy. I'm the one that company needs. And when I get there, I'm going to kill it. Now, again, the biggest question is, and I've asked this a few times already, is he going to be allowed to be, I can't call him dangerous, that's going too far. Is he going to be allowed to work a dangerous style? In which I believe he does, okay? I got to say, I think he will. I think it'll be pared back. It'll be scaled back to some extent. He'll have a different name. I don't know. You know what? We've always said he would have that. Okay, AJ Styles wouldn't be AJ Styles. He would be something else. Samoa Joe wouldn't be Samoa Joe. He'd be something else. Nakamura. But that's not the case. CM Punk broke the mold for that. You know what I mean? To come in and be who you were on the indie circuit. And I mean, they changed it up with Bryan, right? He could have been Bryan Danielson, but they changed it up, so it's fine, whatever. But I don't know that they would change Kenny Omega's name. If they did, it probably wouldn't make a difference in the long run. But a lot of fans know who he is, so they would be chanting Kenny Omega at the shows, which could be why they didn't change AJ or Nakamura's names, or Joe for that matter, which makes a lot of sense to me, actually, now that I think of it. But again, folks, what kind of style are we talking about? Is he going to be as charismatic as he is in New Japan? How far are they willing to take him? I recently had a conversation online with a fellow writer, and in which I told her, I said, I don't know that Kenny Omega is doing anything in New Japan that Seth Rollins isn't already doing in WWE. Okay? And I believe that Seth sometimes takes some unnecessary chances. And a lot of them do, even the women do. Charlotte and Sasha took some unnecessary chances when they were, in the middle of their feud and everything. So, it can be done by either gender. Let's just get that straight right now. It's a widespread problem in that company. It is. It's a huge widespread problem, and it's never going to go away, it seems. And you have to believe that Vince McMahon has signed off on this, that Triple H has signed off on this. This is what they want. If it wasn't, then they would be telling these guys you need to pull back a little bit. I've said before, and I'm on the record as saying, and I'm not going to back down from this at all, is that I believe Daniel Bryan would still be wrestling in WWE today had he chosen to slow down and switch his game up. He had been quoted as saying when he came back that he only knew one speed, and if he couldn't do everything he wanted to do in the ring, that he wouldn't do it. He's full throttle all the time. Well, all due respect to Daniel Bryan or anyone else who chooses to work that way, but guess what? You may not be working for long. And in my opinion, isn't the point of the fact to have as long of a career as possible to develop a style that will allow you to wrestle when you're 40, if that's what you want to do, or, to be able to retire at 40 and not be so physically destroyed that you can't walk? Now, there's plenty of old timers out there, and trust me, I've been around a lot of them who walk with a limp, who have been taking painkillers for 20, 30 years because they have to, not because they're addicted, but because they're in pain. They're in constant pain every day of the week and twice on Sunday, okay? So, and they didn't work the high-flying style, so make no mistake about it. No matter what kind of style you work, all right, the ring is very punishing. It's an unforgiving surface. The concrete floor is very unforgiving. Ring posts, ring ropes. They'll have some give, but they're not going to give that much. And getting dropped on your head every night for 20 years or so, it's going to start having an effect on your body, and probably in a less amount of time. But what I am saying is this: the current style that we're seeing, this high risk stunt show, do a 450 off the ring apron when you don't need to. It's hell on the knees. It's hell on the back. And in my opinion, you're not going to know the full extent of what I'm talking about today in 2017, but give it 5-10 years, you're going to start seeing what I'm talking about. Because injuries in WWE are at an all-time high, I believe. And I think a lot of that has got to do with the current style in that company, okay? And I see that being the case. And as long as that style continues in that company, you're going to see the injury toll get worse and worse as the months and years go by. And again, we won't know anything until, I'll say, 7 to 10 years from now. You're going to begin to see the full, long-lasting impact of what these guys have done to themselves because of this style that's more, high risk and high octane than slowing down and telling a story. Ric Flair is deadlifting 400 pounds. Okay? Now, I want you to think about that for a second. Guy's in his 60s, and he's a senior citizen at this point. He is. Could be sitting home drawing Social Security for all we know. Who knows? But Ric Flair, greatest of all time, worked a slow style, a methodical style, a mat-based style. Did he come off top rope? Of course he did. With that move that never worked. Which I'm sure was supposed to be a double axe handle. The times he ever did hit it was double axe handle, right? But, and of course he came off the top rope. Of course he was thrown around. Of course he was put in high-risk situations and worked guys that were very dangerous around. Of course he was. Of course he was. He's been in business as long as he was, as long as he has been. He's encountered every type of talent you can possibly imagine. But the guy is walking. He's in great shape. He's deadlifting 400 pounds, folks. You know how many guys his age can't walk right now? When Seth Rollins is 65 years old, will he be able to walk? And if he can't, is it because of the business, or is it because of the natural strain of life has taken its toll? Now, you tell me what the answer is. Again, we're not going to know anything for a good long time. For all we know, not just myself, but every critic of the new style in WWE that's going like, everyone's going crazy about it right now. Maybe no one is really going to know the full impact of that for a long time. Maybe we'll all be wrong. You ever think about that? I mean, it's entirely possible that that's right, that we're all dead wrong about this. You know what I'm saying? I mean, for all I know, maybe I'm overreacting. Maybe we're all overreacting. Maybe none of it means anything, and it's just pro wrestling, and it's evolved or de-evolved or whatever you want to call it, and this is what it is. We just need to all get over it. But again, I'm telling you right now, I'm not the only writer that's saying this stuff, not the only fan that's saying this stuff. You got fans who are never going to write a pro wrestling column, who are never going to do a pro wrestling podcast, who don't claim to be experts, who don't believe they are, will watch wrestling today and say, this ain't the same stuff I used to watch. What are they doing out there? You can't tell me that this is not having an impact. And again, like we said before, when the veterans of the business come out in droves and talk about, they're going too fast, they're taking too many risks, they're killing themselves out there. Here's the problem, guys. They have convinced themselves, these boys have convinced themselves that this is what pro wrestling should be now. And they believe that. And that's what they think it should be and how it's supposed to be presented. And they truly believe that now. So as long as that's the case, as long as WWE allows it to happen, then you're going to see guys like Kenny Omega come in and probably make a huge splash. And again, no hate, no disrespect being thrown toward Kenny Omega, all right? I don't mean anything personal. If he were on the program right now, I would be a man and tell him exactly what I believe the issue is that I think he takes too many chances. And I would say it out of all due respect to him, because I, for one, would like to see this guy wrestle another 10 years. I enjoy watching him work. But I can also tell you that what I see is too high risk for my liking. And if he doesn't kill himself, he's going to kill somebody else. I mean, not literally, but you know what I mean. And I think it's a huge problem. But at the same time, WWE evidently wants that, and it's driving me nuts. So what is what is the effect of New Japan on WWE? You can't blame New Japan for the current style in WWE, but I think it has something to do with it. And conversely, it could be that WWE has something to do on the style that's in New Japan. Okay? And I've tried to give you a lot of things to think about here today, and I've mentioned guys by name, and I told you it's not personal. And some of you out there who love the guys I've talked about, maybe you're taking it personal. But instead of doing that, instead of crucifying me or telling me I'm crazy or I'm just another writer or whatever it is you want to say about me, it's fine. But go watch. I challenge you to go watch some classic NWA on WWE Network. Go to World Championship Wrestling, which is not WCW, by the way. Okay, I'm not talking about that. World Championship Wrestling was the program that the NWA would put on, okay? Go watch some of those matches. Go watch some old original Starrcades from 83 to 87, okay? And then watch some WWE matches now and tell me what the differences are. And don't talk to me about mullets or ring gear or something silly like that. I'm talking about honestly watch it as an honest fan, as a guy or a gal who loves the business, who loves being a part of it, who loves watching it, whatever the case may be. And really analyze it and tell me that you don't think that it's a lot more dangerous now than it used to be. Because at one time, two guys could get in the ring, work a slow-paced match, sell the arena out, and have fans begging for more. Now, I know things have changed now, but what my issue with this whole deal is that you've got guys in WWE right now who are convinced that style will not sell anymore. At some point, they've been told to speed it up. They've been told to give fans some sizzle and pop when really fans want meat, okay? Do you want to know the truth of it? We want the meat. We like a little sizzle. We want the steak. And that's what I, as a fan, want. I want the steak, not just the sizzle, okay? I don't want to just know it sounds good. I want to see that it's good. And that's what I'm telling you right now. All the pyrotechnics, all the backstage vignettes and all the video packages in the world and ring gear and special effects, that stuff's fun. And the loud music, I love loud music. Come on, dude, are you serious? I love that stuff. I'm not saying I don't, but all that stuff does not take place of a guy getting over because he can get it done in the ring. Okay, and I'm not saying that the guys I talked about before can't work. Please don't misunderstand me. What I'm saying is this new style is not necessary. And these guys who have convinced themselves this is what pro wrestling should be, I believe, are misinformed, and they're fooling themselves, because I think the majority of fans, if you present wrestling as honest storytelling as you have in the past, I think that the time is right now to bring that back, okay? We always see trends come and go in the business like we see in everyday life. I think the time is right for that to come back, where it becomes all about the story instead of it being about the flash, bang, pop, zow all the time. It's like a Batman TV show in the 60s, dude. Insane, right? I think fans are ready to bring it back full circle. I know I am. What about you? I've thrown a lot of stuff at you in 45 minutes or so here, and I think I've just got the conversation going. I think at some point we will revisit this topic, and if you're questioning what I'm doing, I'm wrapping it up now. This has kind of been, usually I go an hour, and I always tell you guys that. Sometimes I got to shorten it up a little bit. I got stuff happening around me right now. It's preventing the recording process from going as smoothly as I'd like it to. So before any of that stuff happens again, I've had to sign off and sign on a bunch of times and pause this and do all other stuff. But I had this on my mind. Keep your eyes open, because this all very well may become a column in the near future, maybe in the next few days, who knows. So please take a look at that and stay tuned for that, please. Let me give you a few plugs real quick before we go, if I can get it out. You can follow me on Twitter at TomClarkBR. You can find our production company, Boink Studios, on Facebook. You can also find us on Twitter at Boink Studios. You can feel free to drop us an email, boinkstudios@yahoo.com, and give us a message. Let us know what you think about the material that we release, and we do appreciate it. The music you've heard today on this podcast and on our sister podcast, which is Tom Clark's 30-Minute Fun Show, which I do with my 8-year-old son, Wesley, and also Tom and Kyle's Comedy Action Hour. That music is all composed and performed by Philip Goose Fender, who is fantastic, who's a lifelong friend and an amazing guitarist, amazing musician. So, and by the way, he's available for freelance work. So if you're interested, drop us a line, boinkstudios@yahoo.com. The aforementioned Kyle Smith is my partner in crime, my co-owner of Boink Studios. All the artwork that you see on the Boink Studios website, as well as on the podcast illustrations for our sister podcasts. Actually, they're done by the guy I just mentioned. Kyle's an amazing artist who also is available for freelance work. So please hit us up if you're interested. And of course, you can find me on Bleacher Report. Been there 6 years, going strong. Love that gig. It's some fun stuff. I love doing it, and it's truly awesome. I love every minute of it. How long have I been there now? Is it 6 years? I think it's 6 years. For some reason, I was thinking it was 8. Time flies when you're having fun, right? Plus, I'm really old, which doesn't really help me much at all. I mean, life experience and whatnot, but, I'll trade the gray hairs any day of the week, to be honest with you. I'm not vain, though. I'm not going to dye anything. I'm not dyeing the beard. I don't see that happening at all, ever. So just let Mother Nature take her course, and I guess I'll just end up being Grizzly Adams at some point. Who knows? I'll find a bear to hang out with in the woods or something. That sounded really weird, didn't it? Get your heads out of the gutters, people. What's wrong with you right now? Hey, man, that's all I got for you. Stay tuned. Please follow the columns. I'm also on Sportskeeda and Camel Clutch blog. Go check out my stuff. Give me some feedback. I love hearing it. I love response. Thank you for the downloads, by the way. The show's doing great. We do appreciate your business as always. And we will see you next time on Tom Clark's Main Event.